So for what, more than a half a century, there was this one idea, this one fear that just seemed to dominate everything.
Both in policy circles and just, in the popular imagination.
The population bomb.
No.
That existential crisis, I mean, you grew up hearing about it, I grew up hearing about it, this idea of Malthusian scarcity.
Absolutely. Too many people, not enough resources, and this inevitable catastrophe waiting for us. Starvation, resource wars, you name it.
And that single narrative was just incredibly powerful. It wasn't just talk, it shaped actual policy.
Oh, massively. Everything from international aid to local family planning laws, and often with very, very heavy-handed and, frankly, tragic results.
Right. And that narrative really, it kind of crystallized with one book, didn't it?
It did. Paul Ehrlich's 1968 book, The Population Bomb, it was hugely influential.
And he didn't pull any punches, from what I remember.
No, not at all. He famously claimed, and I'm quoting here, the battle to feed all of humanity is over. In the 1970s and 1980s, hundreds of millions of people are going to starve to death.
Wow. I mean, that's not subtle. That is a message of pure, immediate panic.
Desperate panic.
Right.
And it worked. It set the tone for decades.
But, and this is the whole reason we're doing this deep dive today, the sources we've looked at, a whole stack of current demographic research, historical critiques, and this really radical, progressive socio-economic philosophy, they reveal one of the most stunning reversals in human history.
It's truly hopeful, actually.
Yeah, we are not staring down a population explosion anymore. It's the complete opposite. We're sailing into a global fertility implosion.
The exact opposite trajectory. And that's why our deep dive today has a very specific mission. This isn't about drumming up more fear.
Yeah.
This is about facts, it's about potential, and it's about progress. So we're going to conduct a really surgical analysis of the scientific reality of these declining birth rates worldwide.
Okay.
We're going to expose some of the specific ways population stats get weaponized for, narrow political gain.
And then, and this is the part I'm really excited about, we get to the solutions.
Yes. Most crucially, we're going to explore a really comprehensive and, I think, futuristic socio-economic philosophy, the Progressive Utilization Theory, or Prout, that offers a definitive blueprint for achieving true global stability.
And not just stability, right? It's about economic justice and lasting happiness for all members of the human family.
Exactly.
So this is where we move beyond just analyzing the data and start talking about, systemic solutions. We're synthesizing everything.
All of it. The hard demographic data, like total fertility rates or TFR.
The historical context, that 1968 panic versus the reality today, and then this really robust philosophical framework that connects population stability not to coercion, not to force.
But directly to economic liberty, to universal health, and to intellectual advancement. It's a completely different way of looking at the problem.
It's an optimistic, progressive worldview. And I think to really understand its power, we have to first unpack the myth that started this whole panic in the first place.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's start with the historical context of that population bomb era. I mean, to be fair, global growth rates had peaked in the 1960s.
They had. And that was thanks to incredible, successful advancements in public health and agriculture. People were living longer, fewer children were dying. That's a good thing.
The great thing. But the focus from people like Ehrlich was always on the numbers, not on the systems. And that drew sharp criticism almost immediately.
It did. The central critique, which our sources really validate, is that this Western panic over population was often seen as a subtle but powerful attempt by affluent Western nations to restrict growth in the developing world.
It's a tough pill to swallow, but it makes sense. It wasn't purely humanitarian concern.
No. It was seen as a way to protect their own privileged position, their continued control over global resources. It's almost like colonialism just repackaged as environmentalism.
And we really can't just gloss over the tragic fallout from that pressure. I mean, this fear-driven narrative was often leveraged by some really powerful global financial institutions.
For sure. We see this so acutely in India during the 1970s. The sources we looked at highlight that the family planning initiatives during India's emergency in 1976 were pushed hard by global loan sharks.
Specifically, the IMF and the World Bank.
Yes. The conditions that they attached to their loans often demanded these drastic population control measures.
So when democratic rights were suspended during the emergency, the regime felt emboldened to, well, to do what these international financial masters wanted.
And that led to deeply unpopular, coercive, forced sterilization drives. It caused immense suffering, a huge political backlash, and for a whole generation, a total rejection of any government-led family planning.
The lesson there is just paramount for our discussion today, I think. Coercion and fear, especially when they're directed by outside economic interests, they're not just unethical.
They're completely counterproductive. They don't work in the long run.
Exactly. The fundamental historical error was misdiagnosing the problem. The issue was never just about population size.
It was about the sustainable and equitable distribution of resources. It always has been.
Which brings us to the scientific reality today. So forget the bomb. We are in a global fertility implosion. To quantify this, we need a key metric.
We do. We use the total fertility rate, or TFR.
And TFR is pretty simple, right? It's just the average number of children a woman is expected to have in her lifetime.
That's it. And the benchmark everyone needs to remember is the replacement level fertility rate, or RFR.
Right. In affluent countries with low mortality, that number is 2.1.
2.1 children per woman. That extra 0.1, that little fraction, is to account for girls who might not survive to childbearing age or, infant mortality.
But there's a critical detail here from our sources. That 2.1 number isn't universal.
No, it's not. Due to some lingering higher mortality rates in certain developing regions in the 2010 to 2015 period, the global average RFR was actually a bit higher, it's about 2.3.
But the overall trend, the big picture, is just a vertical dive. I mean, think about the global TFR when Ehrlich was writing his book in the 1960s.
It was around 5.0, 5 children per woman on average across the globe.
And today, as of 2021, 2023, what are we looking at?
The global TFR is approximately 2.3.
That's staggering. So in less than 60 years, we've seen a reduction of more than 50%.
It's one of the fastest, most profound social shifts in human history, and it's still going. The UN, which is often criticized for being pretty conservative in its projections, predicts this decline will continue. They see it hitting a below replacement level of 1.8 by the year 2100.
So that Malthusian nightmare of exponential growth forever, it's not materializing in the data at all.
And this is truly a progressive success story. This is human flourishing in action. Contrary to all those catastrophe warnings, this fertility decline is a result of improved health and education.
And you can even see the shift in thinking among some of the original alarmists.
Yes, Jorgen Randers, who was a co-author of The Limits to Growth, another major alarm bell from the 70s, he now predicts the global population will peak around 9 billion, probably before 2050.
And then
it will fall. He thinks it will fall to half that by 2100.
Half of 9 billion. So 4.5 billion. That's a staggering reversal. That's essentially undoing a century of growth in just 50 years.
It is. And his explanation for it is pure optimism. He says it's due to, and I quote, giving more education, health, and contraception to women.
It just reinforces that core progressive idea. Investing in human capital, specifically in women, is the most powerful, the most voluntary, and the most ethical form of population stabilization there is.
Development is the definitive contraceptive.
It's a peaceful, voluntary revolution. It's global success powered by agency, not by state mandates.
That's the key.
So if the TFR is falling so fast all over the world, why is the world's population still growing? Why do we see headlines about India surpassing China? It feels contradictory.
It does, but it's not. To understand that, we have to dig into the underlying scientific mechanics of growth. And it's driven by 3 things: births, deaths, and migration.
Okay.
But the long-run drama, the story of the last century, is really about a time lag, followed by this incredible force called population momentum.
Let's start with the time lag, because you said it's a story of human achievement.
It's a glorious story. We call it the epidemiological transition, which is basically a fancy term for a massive decline in mortality.
People started living longer.
Way, way longer. Global life expectancy has just skyrocketed.
Yeah.
It went from a really dismal 46 years back in 1950 to 72.8 years in 2019. That's nearly 27 years added to the average lifespan in just 7 decades.
Think about the depth of that progress. I mean, that's not just about old people living longer. It's about saving our most vulnerable.
Exactly. The under 5 mortality rates, they dropped from about 93 deaths per 1,000 live births in 1990 down to about 38 in 2019.
That's incredible.
It is. We won massive victories over infectious diseases. We improved sanitation, access to clean water. We rolled out vaccinations. That period of rapid mortality decline is the engine that really set off the bomb fear.
Right. So people stop dying so young, but they keep having kids at the same rate for a while.
That's the lag. fertility declines later. It's not a medical fix. It's a behavioral, cultural, and economic phenomenon.
So what drives it down?
Fertility drops as women move to cities, as they gain education and economic agency, as they get reliable access to contraception, and just as importantly, as social norms shift away from needing large families for, farm labor or old age security.
So when mortality declines faster than fertility, you get that boom, that period of rapid natural increase.
You do.
Yeah.
But once fertility does decline, which, as we've said, it now has almost everywhere, the growth doesn't just stop on a dime.
And this is the momentum part.
This is the crucial concept of population momentum. I like to use an analogy. Imagine you have a really wide, deep river and you suddenly shut off the water at the source.
Okay.
The river doesn't just dry up instantly, right? The vast volume of water that's already in the channel keeps moving downstream for a very long time.
So that volume of water is the age structure of the population.
Exactly. Population momentum is purely an age structure phenomenon. When a country has high fertility for a long time, it creates a very wide base of young people. You can see it on a chart. It looks like a pyramid. So even when that huge young generation starts having only replacement level numbers of children, say 2.1 on average.
The sheer number of new parents is just so much bigger than the smaller number of old people who are dying off.
Far greater. So growth continues for decades, even at replacement rates. And India is the textbook example of this right now.
Okay, so let's look at the data for India.
The data shows its TFR declined to 2.0 in 2019-2020. That puts it right at or even below the national replacement level.
And the progress at the regional level is even more incredible.
It is. 17 out of 28 states, plus 8 out of 9 union territories, have already reached replacement level fertility.
So experts are confirming that India's national TFR officially dipped below replacement by 2021.
Yes. And yet, because of that inherited youthful structure, that massive momentum from the past, India's population was still growing enough that it was estimated to surpass China's around 2023.
So this isn't a story of failure to control population. It's a demographic echo of past success.
A demographic echo. I love that phrasing. It's the echo of past success in both births and longevity. It's the river still flowing.
But hold on. Before we get too carried away celebrating the end of population growth, we have to talk about the immediate consequence of this fertility implosion, the thing that momentum is kind of masking for now.
Yes, the rapid demographic aging.
So as the base of that pyramid gets narrower and the top gets wider, countries face a whole new set of challenges.
And this is the real danger of the implosion. We're moving from a world that worried about educating too many children to a world that's about to worry about supporting too many elders with far too few workers.
Let's look at the extremes. South Korea.
South Korea has the lowest low fertility in the world. I mean, it's just breathtaking. A TFR of 0.7.
0.7, that's a third of the replacement rate.
The economic and social implications of that are immense. You're looking at pension crises, crippling labor shortages, a potential loss of innovation and dynamism. It's a huge problem.
And the data contrasts across the world are so stark. You've got Europe hovering around, 1.5 TFR?
Roughly. And places like Japan and South Korea are facing an immediate demographic cliff. At the same time, you still have regions like sub-Saharan Africa with a high TFR around 4.6.
With some countries like Niger peaking at 6.1?
Right. So any future global population growth is going to be concentrated almost entirely in that one region.
But here's the progressive takeaway, the optimistic part. Even in those high TFR regions, the decline has already started.
It's underway. Fertility decline is now a near universal phenomenon. It's affecting non-affluent countries like El Salvador, Nepal, even Iran, which famously cut its fertility rate in half in just 3 decades.
How did they do that?
Through a concerted state effort that focused on education and health, not coercion. It proves how quickly the transition can happen. The demographic transition is accelerating worldwide.
So the numbers just keep confirming this optimistic narrative. Humanity is naturally stabilizing itself, and it's being driven by agency and development. The crisis isn't growth anymore.
The crisis is what happens next. The crisis is managing the consequences of success.
Okay, so if the population bomb is diffused and the fertility is, imploding, why does the fear persist? Why do we still hear politicians clinging to that Malthusian scarcity narrative?
Well, that's where we have to make the essential pivot. We have to move from focusing on raw numbers to focusing on systemic failure. And that's the core progressive mandate of this Prout philosophy we're looking at.
So what does Prout say about this?
Prout's foundational assertion is that the Earth is overwhelmingly abundant.
abundant, not scarce.
Exactly. It has sufficient food resources and carrying capacity to feed many times more than the present population. The whole idea of scarcity is not a law of nature. According to Prout, it's manufactured by defective systems.
Okay, if the Earth is abundant, as this philosophy claims, why do we have systemic hunger? Why are there food crises today? I mean, give me a concrete example of this defective system.
So the crisis, according to the sources, stems from defective socio-economic systems. That's coupled with a critical lack of coordinated cooperation, collective effort, a proper ideology, and sound planning.
So we're making enough, we're just not sharing it.
We are generating massive amounts of surplus.
Yeah.
But half the world goes hungry or consumes poorly because an efficient, ethical distribution method has been actively suppressed. It's been suppressed by entrenched vested interests who prioritize profit over people.
Let's look at some data to back that up. Caloric intake.
Right. This illustrates the distribution failure perfectly. The average daily minimum energy requirement is about 1,800 kilocalories per person.
Okay.
Now, the United States tops the global consumption charts. Citizens there average about 3,800 kilocalories per day.
More than double the minimum.
More than double. Meanwhile, you have nations like Eritrea scraping the bottom with a devastating 1,590 kilocalories per day. They're below the minimum for survival.
And that disparity, it's not because the Earth can't produce enough food for everyone.
Not at all. It's caused by, and the source uses this phrase, utter inequality in consumption and thus in resource distribution. It's so clear. The UN's Sustainable Development Goal 12 even recognizes this. The true impact of population on resources is directly related to our consumption and production patterns.
Right. The person consuming 3,800 calories has a vastly greater ecological footprint than the person consuming 1,600. The problem is waste and hyperconsumption, not raw numbers of people.
It's always been the problem.
And this focus on system failure, it lets us dissect the real drivers of high fertility in the pockets where it still exists. We can move past lazy political rhetoric.
You see this perfectly when you compare different states within India. It's a nation that has achieved replacement level overall, but you still have these pockets of high fertility.
So let's compare. A high TFR state like Bihar at 3.4.
And Uttar Pradesh at 2.7 versus low TFR states like Kerala or Punjab, both at 1.6. The differences are purely socioeconomic. They're not communal.
So it's about the developed versus underdeveloped status of the states. It's about their investment in their people.
That's it. And this directly and definitively debunks a really fallacious political myth.
The one that's often pushed by right-of-the-center parties.
Yes, to create a political dividend. The myth that one minority community is overwhelming the majority. It's a tactic of Islamophobia aimed at injecting insecurity. But the data from the census in 2011 and all the national family health surveys since explicitly contradicts this narrative.
What does the data show?
It shows that fertility rates equalize rapidly with progress, regardless of religion or community. Development is the great equalizer.
And the data isolates 3 key developmental factors that really drive TFR down. What are they?
Number 1, the elimination of child marriages. In high TFR states, child marriage rates are rampant. In Bihar, it's 42.5% of women married before 18.
Then in Progressive Kerala.
Just 7.6%. Early marriage directly increases the length of a woman's fertility window and reduces her agency.
Okay, number 2.
The level of schooling. This is the ultimate progressive catalyst. TFR declines dramatically with a woman's level of education.
Give me the numbers.
Only 22.8% of women in Bihar attended school for 10 or more years. Compare that to an astounding 72.2% in Kerala.
That is a massive difference.
It changes everything. It changes aspirations, economic opportunities, the timing of childbearing, everything.
And the third factor?
Contraception and healthcare. High TFR is linked to deficiencies in quality healthcare systems. This results in a lot of unplanned or unintended pregnancies. In fact, about 5 in every 10 live births are unintended in those high TFR states.
So the conclusion for a progressive, optimistic future is just, it's unavoidable.
It is. We don't need coercive laws. We don't need fear-based policies.
We just need to invest in women's education, health, and economic liberty.
And when you do that, it automatically solves the high TFR problem, it improves human lives, and it leads to greater societal stability.
Development truly is the most effective contraceptive. It confirms what that UN statement said all the way back in 1974.
And this is exactly why we have to stay vigilant.
Yeah.
Because when policymakers fail to deliver basic, tangible services,
Like what?
easing crippling traffic congestion, creating better income opportunities, providing safe cities, when they fail at that, The rising population alarm becomes a really convenient political shield.
Right. They can deflect blame for their own systemic failures onto the number of people. It's not our bad planning, it's just that there are too many of you.
Precisely. And that deflection very quickly devolves into political misuse, particularly targeting marginalized groups.
We've seen how some right-of-the-center parties use population data to create social wedges, propagating this fear that demographic change is some kind of existential threat instead of what it is, a natural phase of human development.
We have to recognize the politics of fear for what it is. It's a tactic to secure a political dividend.
And our sources strongly caution against using penal measures, like that proposed population regulation bill in India,
Which sought to penalize citizens for having more than 2 children. As we've already established, India is already successfully depopulating through development. It's solving its own problem.
So a law like that is just interventionist, it's unnecessary, and it actually risks reversing the huge gains that have been made through voluntary acceptance in education.
It's a return to the failed coercion of the 1970s. It's moving backwards.
So the core crisis then isn't demographic, it's philosophical.
Yeah.
If we accept that scarcity is a myth and that inequality is the real crisis, we need a whole new framework for how we govern resources, one that transcends these fragmented concepts of nationhood.
And this is where the progressive mandate of cosmic ownership becomes our guiding star.
Okay, that's a big concept. Break down cosmic ownership for us.
This is the revolutionary foundation of the Prout philosophy. It posits that the universe, all of it, is our shared common patrimony. We are a universal joint family.
A joint family, I like that.
And the ultimate ownership of the rudimental factors, the resources of this planet, lies with the cosmic entity, with the supreme consciousness. No individual, no nation, no state can claim absolute ownership.
We're just stewards, we're members of this family.
Exactly. We are stewards. And the implications of that for global justice are profound and, I think, very futuristic.
How so?
Well, if humanity accepts this idea of cosmic inheritance, then these narrow, divisive concepts of foreign lands and native lands, they just disappear.
They become meaningless.
They do. We become members of a cosmic society, and we are fundamentally free to move and settle anywhere and everywhere we like.
But that would be chaos, wouldn't it?
Not if it's based on the principles of rational distribution and the maximum utilization of global resources for the good of all.
So this immediately rejects all those narrow ideologies that fragment the human spirit.
All of them. The sources are absolutely uncompromising on this. They say that the propagation of nationalism, provincialism, and casteism is nothing short of a mental disease.
A mental disease, that's strong language.
It is, because these ideologies limit our psychic projection. They trap us in tribal thinking. They prevent us from seeing the whole family.
So what's the cure? What's the panacea?
The only healthy, inclusive panacea is universalism. This means feeling a sense of oneness with every single particle of the universe. It's an intellectual and spiritual capacity the sources call 360-degree projection.
So you're saying we shouldn't support ideologies that only project a small, limited angle of collective identity?
Because that inevitably leads to conflict and inequality within the human family. It's us versus them, always.
Okay, so how do you make this universal family actually functional on an economic level?
This is key. Prout advocates for the necessity of rational acquisition and rational distribution of mundane property.
What does that mean in practice?
It means the per capita limit on how much wealth any individual can acquire must be fixed rationally. It's fixed according to the collective resources of our universal society.
So it's not pure communism. There are still incentives.
Absolutely. It provides the stability and economic foundation for the universal family concept to thrive, but it ensures no one is deprived of their necessities while still allowing for incentives for creativity and innovation.
So this principle of rational distribution, it's not enforced by fear. It's enforced by a collective consensus and this feeling of cosmic belonging.
That is the critical difference. It's the economic structure that finally allows us to maximize the utilization of the Earth's abundance for the benefit of all, and that eliminates the conditions that fuel Malthusian panic and political exploitation in the first place.
So we've established that the population challenge is really a symptom of a deeper problem, a system failure and a philosophical limitation.
Yes. And the Progressive Utilization Theory, Prout, offers a truly integrated solution to that. It looks at population stability not just through an economic lens, but through an economic, a biological, a psychological, and an intellectual lens, all four together.
It's a holistic approach. This is the positive, futuristic blueprint for achieving, well, peak human flourishing.
It is. Prout outlines 4 essential factors that, when they're all applied, ensure that population growth automatically finds a natural and optimal level. There's no need for any form of state coercion or fear-mongering.
Let's walk through them. Factor 1 is the foundation.
Economic liberty and nutritious diet. This is about ensuring everyone has high purchasing capacity and a robust standard of living.
You can see this in the real world, right? Think of countries in Scandinavia.
Exactly. Their population challenge is the reverse. They're concerned about low birth rates, not overcrowding. And why? Because people feel economically secure and liberated. When you have a balanced economic system supported by this rational distribution, those Malthusian fears of scarcity they vanish.
And economic liberty is the key, because when a person is just fighting for survival, all their energy is physical, right? Their mental horizon is narrow.
Totally. But when economic security is guaranteed, their energy can be channeled upwards. And this leads directly to factor 2.
Which is?
Sound health.
Yeah.
Biological and glandular balance.
Okay, explain the biological link here, because that sounds a bit technical. Why is glandular balance so important for population stability?
So a healthy body and a healthy mind, which you achieve through a good diet and lifestyle, they allow an individual to channel their intense physical energy, which is tied to survival and reproduction, into psychic energy, and then ultimately into spiritual energy.
So it's about a redirection of energy.
It's an internal effort, a psycho-spiritual direction that naturally controls the baser mental propensities, including an undue or excessive focus on only physical, material enjoyment. When the bodies and mind are in balance, the highest human pursuits can take precedence.
That makes perfect sense. A secure and healthy mind is naturally less frantic. It's not constantly seeking distraction.
And this leads right into factor 3, freedom from mental worries and anxieties, psychological peace.
Right. The sources suggest that mental agony often drives people toward baser physical enjoyment. It becomes a distraction, a momentary release from persistent economic or psychological stress.
Exactly. But when those mental agonies, the ones related to survival, income, security, when they disappear, human beings gain a profound peace of mind.
And with that peace of mind,
they can assimilate subtle, complex ideas. They can pursue creative endeavors. They're naturally less inclined towards simple physical indulgence as their primary source of satisfaction. Peace of mind is the quiet stabilizer.
Okay, and that brings us to factor 4, which feels like the apex, the highest progressive aspiration.
It is. Elevation of intellectual standard and psycho-spiritual potential. Intellectual advancement develops our all-round psychic potential, and that leads to psycho-spiritual evolution.
And the ultimate goal of that evolution?
The merging of our limited individual existence into the infinite cosmic existence. When the mind is elevated toward these infinite, sublime pursuits, the finite physical thirst naturally diminishes. It stabilizes at an optimal level.
This whole integrated approach, it's just fundamentally optimistic. It relies entirely on human agency and our potential.
And think about the contrast in economic structure. In a collective economic system based on these principles, an increasing population isn't inherently a bad thing. The sources state it can actually help the production of essential commodities.
As long as distribution is rational.
As long as distribution is rational. Contrast that with the capitalist model, where population increase is almost always seen as a detrimental. More workers means lower wages, more consumers means greater market pressure.
In a progressive Prout-based system, that fear is gone. Science and technology become allies of humanity, not tools for exploitation.
The potential of science in a balanced system like this is enormous. We can convert vast tracts of barren land into arable land. We can dramatically increase production through scientific farming methods.
And if it were absolutely necessary, we could even produce food chemically on a large scale. The earth is abundant and our ingenuity is limitless.
It is. And looking way ahead, the ultimate futuristic solution is always on the table. Migration to other planets and satellites if our home on Earth were ever to lose its productivity or become unsustainable.
So the Prout philosophy is really thinking on a galactic scale. It sees our current planet as just one part of this universal joint family.
It does. And this rational, collective, spiritual approach stands in sharp opposition to what the sources call the cunning conspiracy by vested interests to promote harmful, fear-based birth control practices.
Practices that can deform the body and mind.
Yes, and cause psychic debility that actually hinders people's ability to fight for social justice. The path forward is one of collective security, justice, and profound intellectual elevation, not fear.
So after this whole deep dive, what does this all mean for you, the listener? What's the big takeaway?
Well, I think we've seen that the decades-long fear of the population bomb is rapidly, and I mean rapidly, giving way to the reality of the fertility implosion.
And this isn't some random fluke. It's a phenomenon driven overwhelmingly by global development and most powerfully by the empowerment of women.
The scientific data is crystal clear. Human society is self-regulating towards stability. So the real crises are not about population size. They're about systemic resource inequality.
And the psychological limitations that are imposed on us by these divisive, narrow ideologies. Nationalism, provincialism, casteism.
We have sufficient resources. We have the scientific capacity, the human potential to manage this world for many times the present population.
What we truly lack are the sound, cooperative, collective economic and social systems that are based on universalism and that progressive principle of cosmic inheritance.
This futuristic blueprint, Prout, it moves beyond the tired old political slogans. It addresses the deepest biological, psychological, and intellectual needs of humanity. And that is the path to justice and happiness for all.
Which leaves us with a final profound thought, something that pushes us toward action.
The sources suggest something really challenging, that the application of force is an essence and spirit of life, that it's necessary for clash and cohesion on the path of progress, and that avoiding the fight against injustice actually means shirking our human responsibility.
So how then do we reconcile that? The necessity of a benevolent, principled force, the force required to enforce rational distribution and justice against those entrenched vested interests. How do we reconcile that with the pursuit of peace, tranquility, and the highest spiritual development in our universal joint family?
That conscious, optimistic struggle for the collective good, for human flourishing. Perhaps that is the ultimate human responsibility of our age.
And to realize this progressive, healthy, and all-inclusive socio-economic philosophy, we have to elevate our collective understanding and work tirelessly for a world with justice and happiness for everyone.
Which is why we want to make this appeal to you.
Please join and subscribe to the Sadvikpra's Movement channel and get associated with Prout, a healthy and all-inclusive socio-economic philosophy based on neo-humanism.